Welcome to Legend Makers, the podcast where education's true heroes take center stage. Okay, now we are back with the Legend Makers podcast. Today, I have Peter Hostrawser sitting here in front of me. Hey, Peter, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here, Scott.
Yeah, man. So from one podcaster to another, was watching your stuff. Very, very cool. I think you and I have a lot in common. I think we're going to have a great conversation today. I've been really looking forward to this. I'm going to hit your bio real quick so people know who we're talking to, and then I'll let you fill in the blanks if that's okay. All right. So you are a career internship educator and program coordinator with Naperville Community Unit School District in Illinois. That's 203. 23 years in the education space. So you got a lot of perspective. You've been podcasting about education for 11 years now or so. So tons of episodes. I was watching a bunch of them. We'll link people out over there. So your podcast is the Disrupt Education podcast, and you're focusing really on reimagining learning. I love this. Career readiness, workforce development, educational innovation, and the future of work. And your mission is simple: helping others find and show their value. And as we like to say here on the Legend Makers podcast, inside every child lives a legend. So I think our missions are very closely aligned.
Yeah.
Fill in the blanks for me there, Peter.
Oh man, there's a lot of blanks. 23 years in the education part. I bounced around a little bit in administration, but I'm a program builder. I've been at 6 different high school districts. So a lot of things that we'll talk about today are secondary education. I have a lot of friends in, the K through 8 space and then post-secondary. But I specialize in secondary. So, it's really throughout my career, coming into this game. I mean, my father was an educator. I really kind of worked trying to not be an educator. I don't know how you say that better. So when I got out of college, my parents were like, "You're going to college," and I went to college. I'm actually a broadcast journalism major for undergrad, my initial undergrad, which is funny. So here we are podcasting, right?
Yeah, right.
And then just jumped into the work world, man. Did some entrepreneurship work. I bounced around, moved around, just did odd jobs, hotel management, bartending. Got my mixology license. So yes, I am a mixologist. I forgot a lot about that stuff. So, but
did you?
But food management and different things like that. Did a stint with Auto Trader. Big shout out to Auto Trader. We were teaching car dealers how to actually sell cars online. I'm aging myself here a little bit, but they did not believe it. We were still in the magazine phase back then, and we were doing that adjustment, and that's where I cut my teeth. And in sales, did a lot of work with as an entrepreneur, own my own video production company, etc. Failed a lot of things, and got a job, got an opportunity to work with elementary school kids doing some weekly video announcements. Basically, from that point on, those students that were in there most of them were like, "Yo, these are great kids. Let's put them in there." But some of them were like, "Hey, we need to get these kids out of class and work with you." And they all, Scott, really just started catching on because they were doing something. They were experiencing learning. And that's what shot me off about 23 years ago. And I still do the entrepreneurship stuff, did the podcast stuff. Okay. We can go deeper into that. But I just love what I do. I help build internships and the entire program at District 203, Naperville District 203 out in Naperville, Illinois. We've got a great team. It is a dream job. It took me a long time to get there, and a lot of ups and downs in education. But I look forward to sharing them.
Yeah, well, share them. Tell me what you're doing there. You said a lot of ups and downs, and it's the dream. What makes it the dream?
So, in experiential education, work-based learning, and career technical education, also known as CTE, if you're in the football world, that's a bad word, but over here in the educational world, that's CTE, college technology, career technical education. I think this transition has been long overdue in the actual system. For me, I've been hollering at it for about 15 years or so as a business educator, coming up into like an internship coordinator. What we do there is we have our students go through a college and career pathway endorsement program that is through the state of Illinois, which a lot of times, governments don't do always good things in education. This is actually a good thing. Our
Hmm.
students say, for example, they pick a pathway, so they want to go into entrepreneurship or business or accounting. So they take actually some dual credit courses where they're getting college credit in accounting, econ, stats, etc. And then they go through that pathway. And in that pathway, they basically are doing team-based challenges. So it's like an MBA, right?
Right,
But
right,
it's
right.
very limited where it's a company will come in and say, hey, we got this 2 week project. We want you to do an accounting spreadsheet or whatever on this. Our students go through that.
Hmm.
And then after they get done and or coinciding in those classes, they come to our course or our program, which is a career internship program where they work 60 hours. They build their what they call durable skills out there, soft skills, however you want to say them. And it's amazing, man. That's what we
That
do
is
is we
cool.
make the connections. Business and education haven't been communicating that well over the past
No,
years. We've broken a lot of trust in education. We've held on to our academia and not really connected that with the professional world. And I get to do that.
that's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. I think that's where, I mean, we all see it having it. There's a need, right? So I'm seeing that right now in my space, right? In the drone space. Like
Mhm.
we came out 6 years ago, it was a lot of little toy coding drones and STEM based kind of stuff, after school enrichment. And with the budgets being what they are, you kind of see people leaning more over to CTE and how do they do that. So I see the dynamic switching not only just broadly, but in my little niche that I live in as well. So I agree with you 100%. I love that's what students need coming out of school. They don't need to, because employers are looking for critical thinking, right?
Mhm.
So people that can actually show me the experience you've had in real world scenarios, because knowledge is everywhere now. Information, not knowledge. Applied knowledge is where it's at. So I love what you're doing. I think it's cool. What are some of the challenges to it? I mean, when you think about broadly, I think you mentioned it, you touched on it,
Mhm.
holding on to academia. Talk to me, say more about that.
Academic elitists. That's the biggest challenge. It's a mindset change, right? So, if you look into a lot of the educators that are traditional, right? And not to no disrespect to them, but my father actually was one of these people, right? You go through you graduate high school, you go to your 4 year degree, you might go into a master's degree, but then you usually go right back into the classroom. You don't really see the professional world. So you don't really
Mm,
see what's outside of education. So we get into this narrow vision of this is what worked for me. And I think this is something that mindset of changing and bringing all different kinds of professionals in the world into the classroom or into the curriculum is the biggest challenge. Um, we're taught. I mean, in my education world, when I went back, because I had to go back and get my teacher certificate, etc., it was very like classroom management, very traditional, and I saw it, and I was like, okay, I get it, but what are we letting the kids do? I think that is the biggest challenge is changing mindsets, allowing people to come in. And also for anybody, even in the professional world, to be humble and to be a lifelong learner. Like, I'm not
mm,
going to know
mm,
everything. Well, I'm going to learn something from you today. I'm going to learn something from my network and talking to different people. And I think educators there needs to be that shift in that, and that's
mm,
the biggest challenge. The other thing is parents and families really seeing, college still as the only way or the elite way, and this is how you get to it. Now, I'm not going to say yay or nay to college. I've got one kid who's got an associate's and he's done. I got one kid who's going to go to a 4 year, right? No
mm,
big deal.
right.
But what I am saying is, as a parent, the only way they see is I need a 4.0 and a high SAT, ACT score, and that is going to be enough. Well, I'm here to tell you, Scott, and all your listeners, that is not enough anymore.
Yeah.
When we just had our graduation ceremony, I would say at least 50% of our students had a 4.0 medal on, right? So what's the differentiator? So what we're doing is we're teaching students, we're teaching family, we're teaching community, we can create super students. And
Mm,
the differentiator is really that they are going to have professional experience within an area of interest at the time that can be transferable. We've had national merit scholars actually struggle in our course. We've had
Oh yeah.
national merit scholars not get into a medium Big Ten university. So these are signals that even the university system is now looking at. Hey, man, we need experiential learning. We need what can you do with the knowledge you have, just like you said there.
I followed. Do you ever watch Diary of a CEO? You ever listen to that podcast? For sure, right?
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
was reading his book recently, and I think it's a few years old. And he had this whole thing of value, the value chain, and it was knowledge into skills creates network, which gives you resources, which then ultimately fulfills your success model. So you want to fill that top piece, and you talked about this lifelong learning, of
Hmm.
which I am. I think it's exciting today to be what I'm doing with tools that I have at my disposal today is enough to make me giddy in the morning. I'm like, this is insane. I got to get back to it. And so you fill that skills bucket, you apply the knowledge, you become valuable,
Yeah.
right? You become valuable through that. And then that builds your network.
Hmm.
You talked about networking, right? So network ultimately opens up a lot of resources for you. Your net worth is your network, right?
Yeah.
And boom, it just from there. So you always want to be filling that first top of that funnel,
Yeah.
the skills, right? Dare
Mhm.
I say we go back to almost an apprenticeship model in a lot of ways. And I think that's kind of where we're coming back to because look, what was our current educational system founded on?
Mhm.
Creating like compliant workers, right?
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
needed it in the early 1900s. We
Mhm.
needed workers, people that
Yeah.
could show up on time,
Yep.
move here, do this, right? Like cattle almost, like go to this period, go to this period, take this
Yeah.
test, regurgitate that
Absolutely.
knowledge, come back here. Now, not so much.
Mhm.
Very different. So I love this. I think we're living through a fundamental change in education right now. And like a Titanic, it's going to take forever to turn around. But there are people like you doing what you're doing, and there's pockets of people doing this. There are really interesting schools like Alpha School
Mhm.
with Mackenzie Price, which she's doing
Yep.
around the country now on the private school level now. But ultimately, I know they're going to try to push that model even further. And that's a very interesting, unique way. I went to a school way before its time in Maine called Hyde School that was a character education school.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
academics were one part of our experience. The other
Yeah.
part was sports and athletics, performing group, public speaking,
There
all
you
that
go.
stuff.
Yeah.
Some very uncomfortable stuff. And when I went, they were like, "Oh no, you will play these sports right here
Yeah.
because I went in with a big chip on my shoulder, and I was like 14. They were like, "Okay, football, wrestle, lacrosse. There you go."
We're going
And
to put you on the line.
they're like, "Yeah, you're front line, and you're going to wrestle too, and that wrestling's going to show you." But I'd
Yeah.
pull that stuff. I mean, if you
Yeah.
talk about being an entrepreneur, you know how hard it can be sometimes. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, my wrestling experience I think has given me, I think about it a lot. That wrestling, that 4 years of like high school, and they were really competitive up there. It was like
Yeah.
it was New England, not wrestling. It wasn't in the 1980s. And,
Mhm. Mhm.
there was no like diet. It was like, no, you just don't eat for 3 days if you have to
Yeah.
make weight.
Right.
Okay. So, there's things that you look back on and go, well, I did that. If I can do
Vision
that, I can
Quest.
do a
If
lot of,
anybody wants to know the movie, it's
yeah,
Vision Quest. You go see
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
Scott went through.
So, so it's pretty cool. So I love this. Tell me like, what is the most so let's keep going into these challenges and then maybe flip it to the opportunities. Like where do you
Sure.
see the big opportunities? Clearly you're pushing forward. How do
Mhm.
we how do you push that out? How do you
Yeah.
get more of it out? Like I know that's your mission really.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm part of a CTE collective that's kind of a new thing. So that you might be one of the first podcasts that's going out on. But I work with a lot of different people.
Cool.
Allie Dahl, my co-host, is amazing. She is one of the people that was a chemistry teacher for 10 years, bounced out of school, but is also now educating as a skydiving instructor, a tandem skydiving instructor, and she is
Nice.
one of a handful of women in the world that does that. So that's her caliber, and I really like working with her, like Christy Valesky, who does Valesky Consulting, Mark Covell. who's out in Pennsylvania area. You have Peter Harris is in New York. We
Mm.
work with Sylvester Chisholm. We have Sandy Adams, who's just stepping away from ACTE, but doing some consulting work. She's got a couple books.
Mm.
And Chris Nesmith, who's a superintendent out in Washington, who will talk a lot about that old model. And then Booker T. Washington's model, which was kind of, pushed off to the side, which was the model that we're coming back to. He'll talk about those things. And then Jason Van Nuss, who's at the Wynn Academy down in Georgia.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's how we scale. I think just making
Quite a
these
group.
conversations. So what's that?
That's quite a group.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I am the dumbest person in the room, and I love it.
I commend you
So,
on that. There's nice to be the dumbest guy in the room
yeah,
sometimes. Person in
absolutely.
the
But
room. Yeah, for
to
sure.
your point, though, I think that's how you scale these things. There are a lot of different schools out there. I'm actually in a public school, K through 12. We're, I think,
Hmm.
the third largest district or fourth largest district in. Don't quote me on that, but we're around that area in Illinois. And our administration has made the effort to not only create like a profile of a graduate or profile of a learner, which a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
schools do, but actually act on it. And there's a difference there. So when they built our program, my co-coordinator is Brett Thompson, and he's an amazing dude. He started this 4 years ago with two students, and they allowed him to build this
Mm.
from scratch and took a lot of things off his plate to let him do that. Too often, I think what schools are doing right now they are one of the challenges is they're trying to fit it into the academic model. They're trying to say, okay, well, we're going to put all the interns over here. You're going to teach this class and coordinate this, and you're also going to teach four other classes. And
Mm.
it doesn't work that way, Scott. And what happens is then there's still that, hey, well, an intern over here not really academic. They might just go into the workforce or the military or whatever, just into a trade, and they start separating the academics, quote unquote, that are going to go to a 2 and 4 year and everybody else. And I saw it in my daughter's graduation just this past month. You see when they go through, these kids have been targeted and pushed into like, oh, yeah, you're not academic, so let's not build the rigor in
Mm.
academia here, which is the
Mm.
biggest misconception. I think going back to that traditional mindset, our students are super students, man. We do have, like I said, national merit scholars in our class. We've got high ranking, quote unquote, on the GPA levels of our students. We have students who've done programs in out in Stanford and all these elite universities, and students are going to our local community college, but they're all getting that, hey, they're going to get beefed up academics and they're going to get an experience that is going to help them. So to scale this, I always preach that you have to take the time, the effort, and redesign some things. And a lot of people will there's a lot of excuses out there, right? Oh, we're a rural district. Well, just go talk to Jason Walkie, right? He's in a rural district. Yes, it's a private
Mm.
school, but they have
Mm.
Mission Mondays. And it's basically every
Mm.
kid gets Monday off of
Huh.
academic sense, but there are field trips. There are all different things. So they built it in.
Experiential.
It's really how you want to do it. So.
Yeah, yeah. Give me real world examples. So when we talk about real world stuff, like describe a day for one of these students. Like, what are they doing? What
Yep.
are they going through?
So basically, they go through about 3 or 4 classes a day. So when they're in our program, they usually get our period is off. We're on a traditional schedule, which we're trying to
Mhm.
play around with, which is
Yeah.
that's tough. There's a lot of different blockers there, not only statewide, politically, all these different things. I let my upper admin play with that. But we have like our students basically will go through like maybe in the morning they'll go through their classes 1 through 4th period. They may have a 5th period lunch. They may have a 6th period study hall. Now our students are seniors, so they have gone
Mhm.
through the rigors. So they pretty much checkboxed everything they need to get their graduation requirements. And then
Hmm.
they may have a lunch, they may have a seventh period with us, and then what they call an early release. And I think it's funny they call it an early release because that's so like prison-like. But they have the eighth period off,
It
right?
really is. It really
And
is.
and
Yeah.
so during that, it depends on what they're at. Some of our kids are remote. We have students interning in California, New York,
Oh
New
wow.
Mexico, wherever.
Okay.
We have students who are hybrid. They'll be on a meeting or they'll go in an area. Now we're in a major metropolitan area. We're about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. Occasionally, we'll have kids jump on the train and get into the city.
Oh, that's
But we
cool.
work with a lot of companies. Most of our companies are local. We have a lot of industry. We have a lot of hospitals and different things like that. So the students will go and work there. And then we have the on-site students up to 60 hours or more. And then there's no class. So we're called hyper blended. We meet with our kids for about 2 to 3 weeks at the beginning of a semester, depending on how ready they are. They go and they apply and interview for these internships. A lot of programs will place a kid. We don't do that because we want them to, they have to they have to prove their value, right?
Go out
That
and
takes a
apply.
lot of
Right.
stuff off of us. So that student then will then go through that, and then we meet with each student on a one-on-one at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, and then it's basically an online class, and then we collect together at the end of a semester. So we still have to kind of
Yeah.
work within
Yeah.
those things, but that's typically what our program looks like.
That's great. I had some thoughts as you're
Yeah.
talking. Say, okay, your school district has kind of taken the initiative and they're leaning forward into this. What happens? Somebody's listening to this and they're a teacher in, I don't know, Idaho or
Hmm.
wherever, right? Tennessee. And they want to get something moving like this and it doesn't exist yet. What do you
Hmm.
recommend? What do they do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, reach out. I mean, let's have a conversation. I'm all
Mhm.
about that. Just having conversations. We have a lot of school districts that actually reach out to us. We're looking at putting together programs to help other schools within our
Yeah.
schools
Okay. Mhm.
to help out. The second thing would be like look at your state. What is if you're typically an administrator will be looking into this and like what are your state rules, like what are seat time, what are hours time, how can you bend these different things, and usually most states have what they call the career pathway, right? So
Mhm.
I think federally there's 16 of them. You're talking about anything from medical to IT to we have plant and animal science to manufacturing, engineering, whatever. So
Mhm.
see
Mhm.
which one is like the first thing that you have a very good program and you start with. Like Brett Thompson started with two IT students. They were software engineering students.
Mm.
And he reached out to an alum and said, "Hey, would you mind taking two of these students and start working with them? They can code, they can bring value, they can do all these different things." And he built two internship pieces for them, descriptions, and that's where he started. Always start small. Always start small.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
like a lot of your guests have said that, and the different things that they do is you
Mhm.
really do. So you pick a
Yeah.
couple. If you're crazy like me, I would do this even outside the system. So
Uh,
when I was at another school district, I actually where I started Disrupt Education podcast and Disrupt Education. I worked after school with kids on this, and basically it was more on the entrepreneurship side because that's where they
mhm.
wanted to go. And
Mhm.
I would bring in speakers, bring in different entrepreneurs, and I wasn't stipend, I wasn't paid extra for it, but I knew it was the right thing, and I was going to learn from it. So
Mm.
that can be an option as well. And again, we're a
Right.
public school, man. We're not private here.
Right.
So,
Right. Right. How about younger? I mean, I know your kids are seniors.
yep.
How about younger? How do we start this idea in middle school?
Yep.
Freshmen. How do we start getting these kind
Yeah.
of wheels going younger?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. What we do and in our district is we have it's called Motive 8. And if you're in the Naperville or Chicago area, reach out for it. We have different pathways come into a place called the Napier Yards. It's one of those big athletic
Mm.
places where you have like five soccer indoor fields and whatnot. And every single one of our eighth graders come through this.
Huh.
And they walk through, and there's curriculum built for those eighth graders to where they start to ask questions. So they have to interview one or two people from each pathway. So we'll have like anywhere from construction, fire to engineers to medical to we have some financial companies and stuff. So our kids actually, that's where it starts opening
Huh.
up. I'm a huge fan of aptitudes and aptitude training, and that's why we work with shameless shout out with U Science here on our podcast, and they do some amazing things regardless. Where it's their interest surveys and your aptitude surveys. And I think to me,
Hmm.
that's where you start getting these sixth graders, seventh graders. Interests change, right? I mean, if you can imagine what did you want to be when you were in sixth grade? I think I wanted to be like the quarterback for the Cowboys or something.
Yeah,
Um,
I wanted to be
so
Gene Simmons, I think.
yeah, well, yeah, there you go, rocking it.
I wanted to
Let's
be a
see the
rock star.
tongue,
Yeah.
right? I
I wanted to be I wanted
all
to be a
right.
rock star. Yeah, yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, and then the aptitudes actually tell you what you're good at, and then
Yeah.
that starts to
Okay.
navigate some choices. And in a perfect world, what we would do is do an aptitude test and an interest survey in sixth, seventh grade, and then do it again
Mm.
ninth, tenth grade. Your
Hmm.
aptitudes might shift a little bit as you're growing up, but then that can start to really direct where you want to go. So to me, that would be earlier onset of how to get these younger kids into it.
That's cool. That's cool. It's your collective. That's what you
Yeah.
called it, right? Your collective.
Hmm.
By the way, I got to hook you up with Emily Hines if she's listening. Shout out. She works at Influential Drones around the corner
Yeah.
here. She's into the education space. She dives too. Like
Nice.
she's a
Nice.
diver. So she's done a
Yeah.
ton. I think she used to train. So I have to connect your people there.
Allie.
But
Yeah.
Allie, yeah, tell me about the collective. Like what what is your mission of the collective? So you've rattled off a who's
Yeah.
who list.
Yeah.
Some of the names are familiar, some weren't. But
Hmm.
what is the overall? You guys are, I guess, virtual. You come together, and then what is the mission of the collective?
Well, right now, what we want to do is we want to bring every part of CTE into whoever's questioning about it and trying to build their programs.
Mm-hmm.
When I say every part, we're talking superintendents, directors, we're talking, consultants. Me, I'm a practitioner for
Mm-hmm.
the internship part. That's what we want to bring all the people in on this to where you're going to be working with people who are actually in the field and working. They're not just talking heads or people who are just doing a bunch of keynotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That a lot of those people have great messages, but we're in the weeds, and that's
Yeah.
really what we want to do is help build. It's very early on. We'll be launching a website here soon and doing some different things.
Cool.
Big shout out to the ACTE network that we'll be doing a panel discussion in their 100th anniversary in New Orleans. We're excited about that. But what's funny, Scott, is we get together a lot, and not all of us. It's hard to get 8 or 9 people together at the same time. But
Yeah.
we'll bounce in like on a Friday night and just jump on a Zoom call and just start sharing out things. I can tell you I've got couple of text runs that are about 300 different conversations going with each and every one of these
Huh. Wow.
professionals. So yeah,
What you're clearly passionate about this. Like
yeah,
what about this do you love? Like, why? I mean, I always wanted to understand like what makes people tick. Why do you do this?
yeah,
Like,
that's great. Because I'm mad and I'm pissed off at the system. I'll be honest, right?
okay. Good stuff.
At
Yeah.
the end of the day, I kind of started to reflect on my own path, and as our
Mm.
students, a couple of districts ago, as we were building some different things, one student came up to me, and this is at the beginning of Disrupt Education. He was like, "You're the Gary Vee of education." I'm like, "Who is this Gary Vee guy?" And then he was like, "Well, you should be on Snapchat and you should be working on this." And this is like 10, right at
Yeah.
the evolution
Yeah.
of Snapchat and everything. And I'm like, "Wow, what is this stuff?" Right? So that kid right now is a multimillionaire, by the way, and he
Is
dropped
he?
out of
Nice.
college. So
Wow. What's he doing?
he started his own company and he's got an exit. So
Nice.
and then
Wow.
there was a whole group of them at that time in 2015 that just did some amazing like eye-opening stuff for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as I went through, I went all the way through college, and yeah, I'm going to own some of it. I didn't even try on my SAT. There's a blog out there, Scott. I had a 790 on my SAT. I think I spelled my name wrong on the test. I mean, it was that bad. And again, I'm going to own that. Like I probably should have
Yeah.
done things, but that did so many things. And when I applied for college, one college that I ended up getting a degree from. Actually said no because of my SAT score. And then so I went to a different college. I got a quick little tennis scholarship to play. And I played 1 year at a smaller college, and then I moved over. I transferred into that college. But I think one of the things was they saw that we paid cash. And they're like, oh yeah, well now you can come in. And guess what? Like the SAT score doesn't go into their averages for an incoming freshman. So I was
Right.
like, oh,
Right.
this is a game. This is BS, man. Like this is, and again, yeah, I get the college game and it's a business and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give kids a different way to experience life and to experience things and get more clarity younger. Not that they have to make their decisions on their entire life because that's what the traditional system is telling them, right? I just want them to get some experience and show
Right.
who they are and what they're good at. So when we have our students go through our internship program, I mean, they know their top three skills. And it might not be communication, it might not be teamwork, but that's okay. At least they have the clarity because they think they need to be perfect in all of them. I'm not perfect in all of them, even at my young age here. But yeah, that's really why I kind of got into this game. And I'm going to go back into a quick story here
Yeah,
that
please.
Dr. Tyrone Williams, he's so quiet on social media. I hope he listens to this sometime. But he was a teacher. He still is a teacher at a previous school that I was at in the history department. He's like, you know what we need to do? We need to do this EF tour. And I can throw it out there as Oak Park and River Forest High School, and it's a fabric of the United States. So you have kind of the culture of the United States is part of who our people are in that school. So we've got all cultures, we've got different socioeconomic groups, et cetera. It's a pretty diverse school. And he was like, we need to take a fabric of our school over to Switzerland and on an
Hmm.
EF tour called Education is a Human Right. You want to help? And I'm like, yeah. So
Sounds
we
great.
did
Yeah.
that 2015, summer of 2015. We raised money for who needed it. We got it all set up. And I love Education First EF tours.
Hmm.
They can be expensive, but they do a really good job. So we went all the way through. We landed in Frankfurt, went over to Amsterdam.
Oh.
Yeah, 25 high school kids in Amsterdam. That's not a coffee shop. That's what we had to tell them. But we went down through The Hague. We went through Paris, Geneva,
Nice.
Switzerland, and we went to Davos. But we got to hear Sir Ken Robinson speak,
Hmm.
and before he passed away, and that changed my life. So at the end of
Wow.
that, all the kids, the whole thing was like, how would you reframe school? And so the kids were like creating these, they were going through design thinking. I learned design thinking through this, obviously at Stanford and went through that. So I brought it back and, they had one little thing at the end of their book that said you had to sign this and like tell what you're going to do. It was like one of these, all right, well, I'm going to do this. And usually I scoff at that. I'm like, this stuff is silly or whatever. I actually wrote something in there. I was like, I'm going to try to change the way education is built. And then
Yeah.
disrupt education came out of it. So,
It's great.
yeah, it was a
I love
great
that. Well, I
experience. So,
love that
yeah, I'm mad
story.
at the system. I don't like
That's
it.
a
I
great
want to
story.
improve it.
That's a really cool story. I love that. All the greatest things are born out of frustration, right? So it's typically the old entrepreneur story where it's the entrepreneur scratches an itch. That's how you build something, right? You
Yep.
were unhappy with the status quo, and you go out to quote unquote disrupt it.
Hmm.
So I love it. Let's dive into where you think things are going. I mean, look what we're dealing with right now, like AI and job
Yep.
disruption. That's a big thing on everybody's mind. I don't know that I necessarily buy into all of the hype, but I
Hmm.
mean, I'd be curious on your perspective on what, because I've got a kid, 20 years old, going to the local community college,
Hmm.
getting his, undergrad stuff, waitering, which I think is a great experience. He's,
Yeah.
I bartended like you for like 10, it put me through college, right? I
Yep.
bartended my way through school. Um, I think everybody ought to have everybody ought to serve the public at least once. I think you ought to have like a service business, a service a service job once. So,
Hmm.
but with all this talk of AI and job disruption and almost no job is safe except plumbing, like, or whatever. So like, where do you see it? What's happening with it? Where's it going? And what do you think kids are going to need in this new world?
Yeah, I'm gonna begin with I think that actual human experience is going to become a premium. So I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
that actually being a server or waiter or somebody who's out there working with people on experiences is going to go way up in cost. And I think that is where we're flipping things over. Yes, yeah, processes, systems, and things like that are going to get outdated. However, there's a couple of things. Number one, I'm excited about what it's going to do to education, especially at the secondary level. Primary,
Mm.
you have to build those foundations, and God bless you if you got some technology in there and a kid can abuse it. I mean, that's going to be tough, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
I'm a secondary educator. But I will tell you, it will. We always talk about critical thinking. Well, how do you know somebody can critically think, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, now it's just going to be what are your prompts, right? So how do you understand how to prompt? How do you work with AI to make systems and different things better? And that's the one previous student of mine who is doing very well for himself, who helped me start or worked out Disrupt Education was that's what he did. He looked at
Mm.
systems and changed them, right? And I think in education, it's going to. I don't think the tight. I think that we've hit the iceberg. It's over. Now we're looking at okay, which one of these lifeboats are going to work for us, and let's
Mm.
go. I do know there are schools that are going to go down the path of traditional academia and try to control the uncontrollables, and that's too bad. And they
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
have been elite schools, but they're no longer going to be elite schools. So yeah, in the work world. I think these professional skills, you got to communicate, you got to work with people, you got to be out and about. Um, I also think social media is going to die off in a certain way outside of it's going to die off in a way to really communicate with others. I think it's everybody's looking at it and like, is this real? Is this not real? Right? I
Hmm.
think that we're gonna, I think it's going to strengthen communities. To be honest, in I'm hopeful for that because that's what our students are doing. They're going out in their communities and they're working face to face with a lot of our local professionals, and I think it's going to build that way. Now, that's all going to be uncomfortable for us because we just got into this, you and I, we were in the internet turn, right? And we saw the internet happen and all these different things. And I think there's a lot of different opportunities out here. What are different ways that the AI can save lives, that can do some different things, but that also takes a lot of instruction and ways that the human has to communicate with humans. For instance, we were just over. I want to give a shout out to Kids Matter. It's a great organization led by
Hmm.
Nina Menace out in Naperville, and we just went to Argonne Labs. And if you don't know Argonne Labs, there's photon research. They have one of the
Mm.
biggest mega computers in the United States. It's outstanding. But one of the things that they did is they showed us this big screen of all the different things that AI can kind of create, especially when you're looking at nanotechnology, et cetera. I mean,
Mm.
it's crazy. They're taking pictures that are 5 thousandths of a hair. Like, it's insane. But they need artists. They need an artist, Scott, to teach, to tell the story of what the scientists are doing to
Mm.
the general population. And so they had two artists in there, two designers. So I think,
Huh. That's
understanding
cool.
those skills, we can still be creative, we can still do all these things, but there still has to be that human aspect. So that's where I think it's going to go. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, man. You're going to see people
Hmm.
just like the internet and everything. They're going to try to control it in schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's an up and downs. I also think it's an opportunity for schools to actually save funding. Now we know funding's always a challenge, especially in pretty much any public school. But we have students actually putting our ed tech companies on check, and because our ed tech companies that we work with are not moving as fast as we need them to move. So we actually have interns within our project where our students are building platforms that are going faster and showing up things that we specifically need quicker because of not only their skill sets, but their teamwork and interacting with AI and able to do it. So that's what
Wow.
I want. I want to put ed tech companies on check there. There's a couple of things. Number one, if you're working with a school, hire an intern, get into the curriculum, and these big blanket things I don't think are going to work anymore. I think they have to be highly individualized, and that's going to be a challenge for a lot of these ginormous ed tech companies. And again, I'm talking
Hmm.
secondary level, but yeah, our kids are putting out stuff right now that saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, tell me more about, I mean, really good
Yeah,
into that because I'm loving
yeah.
this as a business owner. I am saving myself money by building my own tools.
Hmm.
And I built myself an inventory management system. I couldn't be prouder of myself. I don't
Yeah,
code a thing, but I literally have a legitimate inventory management system that my 3PL uses that I built
yeah,
over a
yes,
weekend that would
yes,
have cost me tens of thousands of dollars and months of probably painstaking telephone with the
yeah.
direct with the
I
developers.
think you mentioned that
And
on Dr. Zweibel's
yeah,
his yeah. So
yeah, it's crazy.
exactly.
So tell me
Yeah,
more about like the ed tech companies.
yeah.
What are they going to need to do? You talked about personalized,
Whew.
individualized.
Yeah.
Let's go down there a little bit.
Yeah, so I think they're going to have to. I think one of the biggest challenges is when you see an exit in an ed tech company, right? You see investors come in. That can be a dicey situation. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, startups in the ed tech world, right? I do some
Mm-hmm.
consulting on the side, et cetera. And it's great, but I've seen amazing projects go into oblivion when you have a group of investors come in because now they look at the dollar amount and then they just want to scale like crazy. And it
Mm-hmm.
initially happens. Sometimes you're going to get that back quick. But then you're going to lose clarity. And, a lot of the reason why a lot of school districts are sticking with one is because their teachers know it, the organizations know it, and there's a cost to, retooling your HR there, right? Which with AI, that's going to go a little bit faster, isn't it, Scott? So,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I see a lot of ed tech companies again doing is they are trying to push onto schools what they need, right? It's the push versus pull. And yeah, we're in a work-based learning program, right? Which are
Mm-hmm.
evolving
Mm-hmm.
extremely quickly. And what we need is a different way to actually have a platform to where our students and organizations can come together locally. We can control it, we can kind of adapt it, et cetera, et cetera. Well, some of the ed tech companies that we work with are like, yeah, we're getting around to it, or it's very clunky. And we're like, we can't wait. Like we're not
Mm.
going to wait. We do sprints like
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they're trying to do it for the masses. And I think that is going to be something where, they're going to have to change. So, however they do it, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
right,
do
right.
know like companies that are built for individuals and giving individuals like feedback and different things like that. Like I mean, I'll just say it like science actually gives people it's right to the student and it's built for the student, right? And it doesn't take a lot of mentoring and coaching around it. I mean, it can and it should. But at the bottom line, the students are actually it's you science, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're building
Mm-hmm.
up your
Mm-hmm.
your things. So it's customized to the user. There are some customizations, but man, when we can't pull data and we need to do things quickly, I mean, that's where our students are building in. That's where I would lean in on having interns at the school. Say, hey, can we
Love it.
hire an intern? Can
Mm-hmm.
we can we pull somebody in? So, and here's the cost of benefit of something like that, Scott. So when students come in, well, our kids work 60 hours, right? So right now
Mm-hmm.
around here, it's about 15 bucks an hour is minimum, right? You're looking at $900. You bring in a student that is actually your client to work within yours, whether it's on
Yeah.
marketing, accounting, or IT or whatever. You're getting a $900 market research right there. And
Yeah.
can you tell me where market research is going to cost you $900 or less when your
Cheap.
actual client is telling you that? So
It's a bargain. That's a
yeah,
bargain.
100%.
Yeah. 100%. Well,
Yeah.
listen, I think this has been amazing. You've got a lot of places. So,
Yeah.
where can people can find you? So, we're going to link to everything. You've got your website at peterhostrawser.com, and
That's
we'll
correct.
link everything.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The Disrupt Education podcast. So it's disrupteducationpodcast.com.
Yep.
You're on LinkedIn, so people could find you on LinkedIn. That's how I found you. I watched what you were posting. I really enjoyed what I saw, and so I reached out to you. And you've got your website. Are you on X and as well? And do you do any of that stuff?
Yeah, you can look at me, but I'm usually mostly on LinkedIn. Yeah,
On
I mean, you can
LinkedIn.
look me up on Instagram and
Yeah,
I'm
we'll find
on
you.
TikTok and all that stuff. Most of that's our disrupt education part, but podcast is on everywhere. It's on YouTube all the way through Spotify, Apple, all these different places, and I love it. I love that we're doing this and having conversations because that's really
Absolutely.
how you grow your network.
Absolutely. Any final words for everybody? If parting words of optimism, or where are we going? What's good?
Life is short. If you have something that you think, especially in the education world or anywhere where you can help mentor or push something or create something, try it. I mean, just do it. Man. Do it, right? Learn, fail, succeed. That's all I got, Scott.
You got it. I'll take it. That's great. And on that note, we are out. Thank you so much, Peter. This has been a pleasure, man. I appreciate it.
Great being here, man.
Take care, man. Thanks.